meat is browned fairly well, and it's kind of steamy right now, so I'm going to set this aside. And we're going to bring the pan back. This time I just wanted to demonstrate how to use red wine to deglaze with. You do not have red wine, so you'll be using tomato juice again for this. But I'd mentioned in the braising video that it's important that you reduce it by half to cook the alcohol off. So here's your wine. It's going to go very, very fast because the pan is very hot. Again, I've removed the meat because I don't want it boiling in this and getting it'll absorb the alcohol that we're actually trying to burn off. It's a fairly low alcohol wine. It's less than 12% alcohol. And it really does go pretty much this fast. So I'm scraping off the fond again. All that fond, you want to keep it in there. It adds flavor to the finishing sauce. And that's it. So it's reduced by half now. I'm going to add the meat back in. And any juice that comes out in the pan, you want to scrape that back in there too. Every little bit, that's the flavor. That's the flavor. If you find you put too much oil in your pan when you're searing your meat, you can always pour that off before you do a deglaze. That way you don't end up with like a slick, greasy sauce at the end. Okay? And now we're going to add in our water. I'm going to start out with 2 cups to see where I'm at here. And I'm actually going to add at least 3. And we're going to go to the full 4. So isn't that awesome? So 4 cups of water equals 4 teaspoons of your base. And if you ended up with less trim for your stew, or you're cooking in a smaller pot and it's fully submerged, and for me, I know I'm going to have to get the vegetables in there too, but I'd like to have another inch or 2 of water. Add it in there and adjust your base accordingly. So your base, again, you're using 1 teaspoon of base per cup of water. Okay? Got that all stirred together. Now we're going to add our aromatics. I have a little bit of thyme that I'm going to sprinkle in there. You guys have that in your kit. I just wanted to introduce, I'm going to put a little bit of garlic in there. If you don't like garlic, you can easily leave that one out. Got a little bit of pepper. So we've seasoned the meat. Now we're seasoning the liquid. Remember, there's a fair amount of sodium in the base, so I don't add more salt at this point. I'm going to add it later on, because if you have the salt in right now and you taste it and you say, well, that tastes great, and then this is going to reduce down a little bit. Whenever you reduce down your liquid, it's going to intensify the salt. But I just want to introduce you to another great little herb called marjoram. It's similar to oregano in some ways, slightly sweeter, and I really do like using it in a lot of soups and stews. So I'm going to add just a pinch of that in here today. And again, you don't have that in your repertoire of food that I sent you with, but it really is a nice one. And again, you could add a bay leaf in here if you wanted to, so on and so forth. This is going to cook for probably a couple hours, looking at the size of the pieces of meat, maybe a little bit less. You want to keep an eye on it. I'm going to add some carrots. I'm adding in approximately a pound of meat. I'm going to add in about a cup of carrots. I have them cut some pretty large dice, actually extra large dice, because I want this to be a nice hearty dish. If you have some smaller dice, you might want to put them in a little bit later in the cooking method, depending on what you have left over from your knife skills to utilize. You could add a little bit of celery in there if you have some on hand, or a little bit of parsley flake. I'm going to add in approximately a half a cup of onion, and I got the onion relatively medium dice here. Throw that in. And I'm going to add the potatoes in just a little bit later because I don't want them to fall apart and break down. You guys are using waxy potatoes. The purpose of the reason I gave you those is they're going to hold their shape a lot better for the chateau potatoes that you're making, as well as here in the stew. So we're going to stop right there and let this cook. I'm going to put this on low on a burner and let it simmer and stew. You could also do this in the oven. When I do, I typically leave the top on for the first half, and then I take the top off. For the second half, so it doesn't cook too much of the liquid out. So we'll come back, finish this up in a little bit, add the potatoes, and then we'll have one more step where we're going to come back and thicken the sauces up. So stewing, searing the meat, fully submerged, small pieces of your vegetables and the pot, adding flavor at this point in time.